Hi everyone, we're going to finish our ionic compound naming and formula writing notes. So you're going to need your booklet and your foldable. To start us off, last time we talked, we were learning how to name ionic compounds, and we stopped after we learned how to do it with a polyatomic ion. We're going to do one more type of ionic compound, and that's if the ionic compound has a transition metal in it. So remember that our transition metals are right here in the middle of the periodic table, and we did not memorize charges for them because they can have a different charge depending on what element they're bound to. So here's where we start writing. It's in blue, so we're in the booklet. Transition metals can have more than one charge, and they get that charge by losing electrons from the s orbital. And then transition metals can have multiple charges. This next part is going to be on your foldable in the third flap that says transition metals. I don't have a foldable, so I'm just going to do it on this blank paper. Okay, so to write the name of a transition metal ionic compound, the first thing you're going to do is write out the cation. I'm going to work with this example. So write out cation. Remember, the cation has a positive charge, and it is always the first element. So Fe is iron. Use a Roman numeral to indicate the charge on the metal. If you don't remember your Roman numerals, we only really need to know a few. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're mostly going to be using 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so step 1, write out the cation. Use a Roman numeral to indicate the charge on the metal. That Roman numeral is going to go in parentheses, and in a sec we're going to work out what it is. For the anion, we're going to write it with the ending in "ide." So write out cation, write Roman numeral to show charge, write anion, end in "ide." So here we have chlorine, and if we change the ending, it'll be chloride. Okay, so it's iron something chloride. Here's where we actually have to do almost a reverse crisscross. Previously, you were doing a crisscross to figure out the subscripts. Now we have to do a crisscross to figure out the charge. So we're going to go backwards. We don't know the charge on iron right now, but we do know the charge on chlorine. Chlorine is always -1. If I have 2 of these, there is a total of a -2 charge over here. To cancel out that -2 charge, the iron, since there's only one of them, will have to be +2. So if I have iron with 2 chlorines, it's going to be an iron 2. I want you to add a little side note because this is a common misconception. The Roman numeral is not how many you have. So sometimes kids think like iron 2, that means that there's going to be Fe2. No, that Roman numeral is telling you the charge of the iron. There are some that you have to memorize. They are on that cheat sheet on the very front of your packet. So let's look at that really quick. Here they are. You should memorize these. These are transition metals that will not change, so they do always have the same charge. Zinc is +2 and Ag is +1. On this PowerPoint, it says don't write the Roman numeral. For me, if you write it, that's fine. I won't take off for that. Okay, so let's do some more examples on our foldable. The next one is Ni2O. We're wanting to write out the name. So Ni is nickel. We don't know the charge yet. And then O would be oxide. Now I have to do a reverse crisscross to figure out what that charge is going to be for nickel. So oxygen, there's just one. Oxygen's a -2 charge. And then over here, I have 2 nickels. So I have 2 things that have to add up to a -2 charge. If they are both +1, that would be a total of +2, which does cancel out the -2. So since there's 2 nickels that have to work together to cancel out this -2 charge, they're both going to be +1. So this is nickel 1, oxide. Our next example is CuS. Here, Cu is copper, and we don't know the charge yet. And then sulfur would be sulfide. For the reverse crisscross, we know that sulfur is -2 charge. This is something that you do or should have memorized. So there's 1 sulfur, it's a -2 charge. There's only 1 copper, so to cancel out that -2, it'll have to be a +2. So copper 2 sulfide. Okay, one more. Let's do Cu2O. In this example, it's copper something, oxide. That oxygen is going to be a -2 as well, but this time I have 2 coppers. So if I have 2 coppers to work with, each one will have to be a +1 charge to cancel out the -2. So in this case, it's copper 1. Remember that this Roman numeral is showing the charge and not how many coppers I have. All right, so here's our official answers for the foldable. The next thing I want you to do is, on your other side of your foldable, we're still on the third flap, let's practice writing out the formula. So this part I would name name to formula. Okay, so Roman numeral tells you the charge of the transition metals. You're going to write the symbols with charges and then do the crisscross to get the subscripts. And don't forget that sometimes after you crisscross, you have to simplify.